right, if this is your reality right now, inventory stacked up, unsold product, collecting dust, and you're sitting here wondering, was this whole thing a mistake? Should I have ever even started? Then this video is for you. Because a failed drop, according to data, is the #1 reason why 99% of clothing brands fail and why 90% of brand owners quit before they ever have a successful drop. And honestly, it's the reason I almost quit whenever I lost $800 on my first drop, and then I lost $6,000 on my second drop. But if I did quit, then I never would have felt the high of hitting my first $100,000 drop. I never would have known what it was like to direct a $30,000 campaign for my brand. I never would have known what it was like to employ 5+ people full time on my brand. I never would have known what it was like to take my team overseas to China and Japan for research. I never would have known what it was like to have my own clothing brand studio. I never would have known what it was like to have a warehouse. I never would have known what it was like to sit in an apartment. See, the reason I'm still sitting here today is because I learned how to diagnose my problems. I learned how to figure out what was wrong and then fix it, and then come back harder than ever before, and then do it again and again and again. So in this video, I'm going to be handing you the exact framework that I use to diagnose the little problems in my brand, fix them, and make sure the next one hits. So buckle up. We got a Diet Coke, fresh crack. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good one today. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, the tactical stuff, I need to reprogram your brain on something real quick. A failed drop does not equal a failed product. A failed drop does not equal a failed campaign, and a failed drop does not equal a failed brand owner. Those are three separate things, and I don't want you to mistake these. So what a failed drop actually means is that somewhere in your line of execution, there is what we call a point of friction. And rather than just giving up and scrapping all your inventory, calling it a day, what you actually need to do is just diagnose the point of friction, fix it, and then run that shit back. And today I'm going to be giving you my personal framework to diagnose these issues and fix them. I call it the 3-bucket evaluation. So bucket number 1 is the product. Bucket number 2 is the product frame. And bucket number 3 is the marketing campaign. And in one of these, or 2 of these, or maybe all 3 of these lies the reason that your drop was unsuccessful. So let's break down each bucket and figure out why most clothing brand owners fail. Why you failed, why I failed, and how to fix it. So the first question that you need to ask yourself is, was my product actually good? Not do you think the product is good, but does my target audience actually want this product? Is there another brand that exists in my niche that's also selling this product to my target audience? Or would they sell the product to my target audience if they haven't already? Is this an idea that they'd be like, damn, we should have thought of that first, right? And you need to check yourself here, because there's a lot of creative people and a lot of people who think outside the box and want to bring new ideas to the table. But most of the time, the issue is that people think too far outside the box, right? They're trying to reinvent the wheel instead of tweak it and make it their own. All right, so what you need to do is you need to look and see, are the other brands in my niche selling products that are similar, if not the same as mine, but branded in their own way? Now, if the answer is yes, then you have proof of concept that the product is something that the audience wants, and the issue probably lies elsewhere. But if the answer is no, then you either invented something completely new or you made a product that your audience doesn't want. So the first thing we need to look at is your actual marketing campaign. You need to go back to the content that you posted leading up to your release, and you need to gauge the feedback on product showcase content specifically. Product showcase content is the content in your campaign that just shows the product without much else to distract from the product. It could be an on-body photo, a lay flat, it could be a mock-up, just something that just shows the product. And in this content, you will pretty much get a clear indicator based on feedback whether or not your audience liked it or didn't like it. If you have good feedback, then obviously they liked it. If you have poor feedback, then obviously they didn't like it. And if you have no feedback, then you didn't post enough content leading up to the release, which could 100% be an issue. Now, a lot of you guys are gonna be harsh on yourself, which is why looking at data is useful, all right? Because data is unbiased, all right? Feedback from the audience is unbiased. People are going to tell you if the product sucks, and people are going to tell you if the product is good. And if nobody says anything, then nobody's seeing your product, and your content is not compelling enough for people to offer their opinion, which means you need to post more content. Likely means that the deficit in your sales could be attributed to the fact that you just didn't post enough content. That's a big issue I see a lot of people have, is they just don't post enough fucking content, and then they wonder why they have no sales. Okay, you have no sales because you have no traffic, all right? You have no people that are interested. So keep posting and keep marketing until people are interested. You really have no business dropping or releasing an item if you don't have consumer interest built. I think a lot of people, including myself years and years ago, are under the impression that if they create a product and they create a website for it and they have some form of advertisement, then they are just kind of guaranteed at least one sale. That's just not reality. And the reality is, if people do not see your product, then people will not buy your product. Even if your product is the best product in the world. I could put a cure to cancer on the internet, but if nobody sees that I posted the cure to cancer on my shop, nobody's gonna come by and buy the cure to cancer. It's just like, it just doesn't work like that. You need to keep posting content until you can get some traffic and some data to actually determine if the product is good or not. There's a million different ways to post content. If you want ideas for that, I have a video right here on the winning formats walking into 2026. Go watch that video. If you don't know what content to post, let's keep it rolling. Now, let's say that your product is actually solid. People were commenting, people were DMing you saying, hey, this product is sick, but no sales were made. That is what we call a product frame issue. Now, the product frame is a collective of the additional details surrounding the product that bring people from commenting, yo, that's fire, to actually handing you their credit card and purchasing the item. Now, the first thing we like to look at is number one, price. All right, and the way to gauge whether or not you priced your item correctly is by going to look at other items similar on the market and seeing where other companies are putting a price point for that specific product. Now, you need to first determine that those companies are selling to the same people, right? Because what may happen is they're selling a product, but they're selling a product to a richer demographic, right? Somebody who can afford more, somebody who's used to spending more on clothing, or they're selling the product to an audience that is used to spending less on clothing, all right? And if you guys share an audience and you're selling a similar product, you can get an idea of how high their price is. And if they are actually selling that product well, then the price is typically appropriate if you match it or come just below it. Now, if you are a new brand, you're going to have to price competitively because you have not earned the right to price your item up here because you have not shown any demand. It would be different if a lot of people already wanted to buy your product, so they were willing to pay a little bit more. But if nobody's there in the beginning to buy your product, then you need to price competitively. I like to shoot for 10 to 20% below my competitor. Kind of stick there. You don't want to drop your prices too much because you don't want to devalue your product. All right, you don't want to have to be the brand that just sells things for super cheap, have shit margins, and then have no capital to scale from then. That's never a desirable situation. So what you want to do is you want to go a little bit lower than your competitors. Not too much so that people don't get the idea that the quality is lower, but enough to where they're like, okay, well, they can afford to sell it to us a little bit cheaper. We'll give them a go. We'll give them a go, right? Now, the next thing you want to look at is your shipping costs. I did an evaluation with one of my students recently. He had a shipping error that had his shipping costs set at $60 per order. And obviously, if a customer goes through your purchase pipeline and sees a $60 charge before they check out, they're going to say, whoa, fuck no, and they're going to hop right off your website and go buy it from somebody else or not buy it at all. So what I'd recommend is that you do a test purchase from a domestic address and an international address to ensure there is no crazy shipping error. There's not like a flat rate shipping fee that you have your Shopify settings set to that's charging people out the ass. There's no crazy international conversion fee, just the normal shit. The next thing I like to look at is shipping time. Now, in today's day and age, there are lots of brands still doing pre-orders. That is totally understandable for a smaller brand that cannot afford to front the upfront capital that is needed to do a bulk order, let alone have the data to know whether or not they can actually sell that product. It's totally understandable if you are doing a pre-order, but if you are doing a pre-order, then that shipping timeline may determine folks, especially if it's longer than like 6 weeks. Typically, a pre-order you don't want to be any longer than 4 to 6 weeks. I like to stick on the lower range if I am going to do a pre-order, and I'd recommend everybody tries to stick to that lower range, about 4 weeks. Now, obviously do what's realistic and be honest with the customer based on what you can actually fulfill, but sometimes that pre-order timeline can deter people, and this is a little bit more of a difficult issue to deal with because, again, sometimes you just can't afford to take that risk, and that's totally okay. But just bear in mind, it is going to be a little bit harder to make the conversion, and you're going to have to put more effort in on the content side of things to win these guys' trust before they purchase from you. The next thing I like to look at is my sizing sell-through. Sometimes I will release a product and one size will sell out super quick, and then the rest of the sizes will sit, and that is typically due to a miscalculation whenever I place my bulk order of how many of each size I should get. Sometimes I skew too high in the larges and XLs, sometimes I skew too high in the smalls and mediums. It really just is about knowing your customer. If you're a beginner with zero data to work with, then I would recommend you skew lower on size small and size XL and a little bit higher on mediums and larges for pretty much everything, unless you're selling women's clothes. And if you're selling women's clothes, then I would recommend that you skew higher on the smalls and mediums and lower on the larges and XLs. Now, the next thing I look at is the product description. A lot of people will skimp out on this because in the beginning, before you know much about making clothes, it's hard to really know about fabric, about construction, about the origins, about the fit, about the words to use, the vocabulary. And to improve this, I'd highly recommend that you do a little bit of research and learn about the fabrics that you're using, the origins of the clothing that you're making, the construction of the clothing that you are making, so that you can inform the customer as best you can and educate them on why the product is priced the way that it is. Obviously, there's tons of YouTube videos, Google searches, ChatGPT conversations you can have. To learn about this, I would recommend you have a conversation with your supplier to get as many details about the fabrics, the construction, all of the treatments used to make the garment so that you can use those in your product description. It gives the audience more trust in you whenever they're reading the listing, and also gives them details that they wouldn't have otherwise known that could push the conversion. Now, the next thing that I like to look at is the website navigation and the product presentation on your website. Oftentimes when people make their own websites using sites other than Shopify, whether it's Squarespace or Figma or some other random fucking website builder thing, things can end up buggy. There could be broken links, there can be laggy buttons, there can be pages that redirect back to something, there could be errors, there could be a lot of issues, which is why I recommend testing, and I recommend using the site as a consumer, going all over the site, making sure there are no lags, there are no issues, and that there isn't too much friction between them entering the website and them seeing the product and then them checking out the product. A lot of the time people will put like animation intros and videos on their websites and like the enter button, and I personally feel, yes, it adds to the effect of world building and it does kind of give people a feeling, but for the most part the purpose of your website is to host a transaction, not market the product and market the brand. You should be doing that on the content end of things so that whenever people jump on your website, they can see the product as fast as possible, they can access it, they can select their size, they can add to cart, and they can check out as fast as possible. Now, what you need to do is you need to hunt for friction here. If there are too many clicks to get to the actual product, then you need to lessen the friction and you need to make it a lot easier. Maybe you need to take out a page, maybe you need to remove an animation, maybe you need to add a button to the front and center page, the landing right as they get on the website so they can go directly to the product. If there is too much friction with the checkout page, maybe you have like a 3 or 4 step checkout where it's like asking to add this or take away this or all this stuff like the check marks and everything, and you need to kind of just make it cleaner, make it easier. The goal should just be to make it as easy as possible for your customer to make the purchase, because at the end of the day, like I said, the purpose of the website is to host a transaction, not to give the customer a crazy experience and try to like market the product to your customer with the website animations. Again, the content that you post on your socials, your ads, your emails, your SMS, whatever, should have done that for you. Now, here's the thing about product frame issues, okay? A lot of people will probably hear this and then think, oh, well, how am I supposed to know if the customer experienced friction on the website? Well, we have Shopify Analytics for this. We have Microsoft Clarity for this. All of this shit can be found in the analytics, all right? And I'm gonna put you guys on real quick, all right? This is not an ad. This is just me putting you guys on a software that's helped me a lot. Download Microsoft Clarity and link it to your site. That software pretty much records every single session that a customer has with your website, and you can literally go and watch the live view of them going on your website, clicking around. It offers you heat maps so that you can see which sizes were clicked on the most. It'll literally have a heat map of like small, medium, large, XL, and it'll show you like which was more hot, like what was the hottest and how many clicks each one got, right? And if you just take a peek at that and install that quickly, it does not take long and it's easy to look at the data. Just install that shit and you can pretty much diagnose whatever website issue you have just using that software. All right, so now I want to talk about volume of content. All right, and this is where 99% of most brand owners will experience the point of friction and the issue. They're just simply not posting enough. A new brand owner, which most of you guys are, will start posting. They'll look at a marketing campaign from a bigger brand. They'll say, oh, well, they posted 4 or 5 times. If I post 4 or 5 times, then boom, it's gonna work for me. But that's just not how it works. These bigger brands, they have buyers lined up waiting for them to post and for them to release a new product. Why? Because people have bought from them before. They trust them. They have the garments. They come back for more. They've posted tons of content for a long period of time. They built up a following. They built a community. You don't have that yet, which means that you cannot follow the same set of rules that they follow. You have to post a lot and you have to keep posting and you have to keep posting. Get as creative as you possibly can, whether it's founders content or UGC style content, which is where the user interacts with the product. There's tons of different types of content you can test. You can do AI shit. You can test skits. I have a whole video on the winning formats in 2026 that I made a while back. Go check that one out after this one. But point being, most of you guys just need more volume of content. And if you posted 4 or 5 times and you didn't see your followers go up, then you didn't post enough. Boom, there's your issue. All right, if you did not see an increase in traffic from the time you started posting to the time that you dropped, and that increase in traffic needs to be of some significance. You need to be getting likes on your posts. You need to be getting comments. You need to be getting DMs. You need to be getting more viewers. You need to be getting more followers organically. Now, if you did post a shit ton, posted 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 times, and you still didn't see results with your drop. Next thing I want to cover is product showcase, or the lack thereof for most brands that I see on Instagram. See, most brands will get a little carried away with the creative content, the short films, the cinematic shit, right? The creative stuff, the artsy stuff, because that's what we enjoy. It's fun, it's abstract, it's an expression of self, it's fucking sick, right? But the issue with most campaigns is that they do not include an adequate enough product showcase, which is content that's sole purpose is to showcase the product to get people to either decide, hey, I want to buy this, or hey, I don't want to buy this. You need that, whether it's e-commerce content, on-body content, lay flat content, mock-up content, whatever it is, you need a clear communicator of exactly what the product is so that people know you're actually selling products. You're not just like a theme page or like a cool creative influencer. Another common issue that I see in a lot of marketing campaigns is the lack in BTS or development content, right? I believe this content is very, very, very important, specifically for newer brand owners, because again, what we're dealing with is a trust gap. The difference between you and the big brands that can drop and post 4 or 5 posts and then make a bunch of sales, they have trust from the consumers because the consumers have history with the brand. Now, how do you fill this trust gap? How do you win that trust gap before you actually make sales to your customers? Well, the way that I think it is best done is simply by showing how much care, intent, and effort that you put into the project, right? Because people tend to trust people that care about the products they're posting, not the people who are going to Alibaba asking what blanks they have and just putting their logo on the blanks. I'm talking the people who actually put time and intention into making the product. And if that is you and you can showcase that, you can tell people and you can show people people, hey, look, we care about these products, all right? Look what went into it. Again, if you can show the difficulty from having the idea of the product to actually having the tangible product in your hand, and you can show people the steps, right? Whether you're sourcing fabric, you're looking for references, you're working with your supplier, you're doing sample revision. For me personally, I like to showcase my revisions. I like to showcase my shitty samples. I like to showcase our research in going and looking for the fabrics for the product, looking for the trim for the product, things of that nature. I like to showcase the inspiration that went behind it, the story or experience that I had that made me even want to make it. And these things all add kind of like lore, and they add meat to your product. People see it as more than just a finished product. They see it as something that has grown and matured and been carved into something that is presented as the product to buy, right? And that makes them attribute more value to it. It makes them think, well, no way they went through all this effort for this product to not be good. Right? Another common issue I see is a misdirection of traffic. I think a lot of people do not understand that traffic comes and traffic goes. Views and attention come and they go just as quickly. We live in a world full of consumers, people who are just scrolling on Reels and TikTok every day. They're looking at a video for 0.5 seconds before they scroll to the next. And just seeing your product once typically does not make the conversion, all right? And just because they saw your product once does not mean that they're going to remember that product for the next week and a half while you guys do your campaigns, right? I see a lot of people that will get traffic on a video, let's say a reel pops off, and then they'll start a 2-week marketing campaign for the product and release it in 2 weeks, and that just doesn't work. These people's attention and interest in the product last about that long, and then it's gone, all right? So the best case scenario would be having the product on hand ready to purchase once you get that flow of traffic. It's important that the consumer that had that initial interest sees it as many times as possible before it's available to purchase. And they see it in a short window so that it's on top of mind. They're more likely to impulse buy. They're more likely to act on that interest that you sparked with that initial wave of traffic. Another common mistake that I see in most marketing campaigns is a gap in communication. I think that a lot of people fail to repetitively communicate when and how to buy the item. See, the thing with content is a lot of people are surface level viewers, right? Which means that if you are not directly communicating when your drop is, what day it's on, what time it's at, what site it's on even, and what's dropping in that release, if you do not directly communicate that, whether it's in the captions of your videos or with stories or with on-screen text or with vocals in a video, like a narrated video or whatever it is, if you do not include that, people will not be there, which is why it is so important that you have an email list and you have an SMS list that you can directly communicate with at any point in time, knowing that you're going to reach everybody and you can give them direct communication. So in this video, what I want to do for you guys is I actually want to go through an actual real world drop audit that I did with my student Tyrese last month. And I'm going to walk you through the process of how I did that audit so that you can just copy it for your own drops and make sure that you're looking at the same things that I'm looking at to spot the issues, right? So Tyrese had a pretty decent product actually. It was really suited to his target audience. He put a lot of effort into it. It was a decent, high quality garment. It wasn't too crazy. It wasn't too outside the box, too experimental. It was a product that, if positioned well, could sell to his audience, right? So for me, I'm looking at the product and objectively, there's nothing wrong with it. So now that we know that we have a decent product and the point of friction more than likely doesn't exist in the product being lacking in and of itself, now we're gonna look at the product frame. Looking at the product frame, I like to start with analytics, specifically Shopify analytics. Now, looking at his analytics, he had 160 site visitors on the day of the drop. He had 24 add to carts, and then he had 0 purchases. Now, looking at that, you should have had at least 1 purchase. A good conversion rate, like I said, for a beginner brand owner is between 1 and 4%. 1 on the low end if you are a brand that doesn't have a ton of traffic, just has people coming in and out just to shop, look at the item, see if it's worth it, and leave the site if they're not super invested. And 4 on the high end if there's a lot of hype, a lot of interest in the product, and a lot of people that are really excited about the product, right? His conversion rate was 0, right? And with 160 site visitors, he should have had at least 1 1 to 4 purchases, right? I would say 1 to 7 purchases, 7 on the high end if his product was really good and the interest in the product was really good, and then 1 on the low end, even if his product was kind of mid, right? So we know that there is some friction on the website. So now we go through and we act as the customer, right? Now I just go through the website and go through the purchase process, the shopping process, and find the point of friction. So I go on the website, super easy to access the item. We add the item to cart, nothing difficult here. Then we get to checkout. And at checkout, I notice that there is a $60 flat rate shipping fee. Now, I asked him, I said, Tyrese, did you know about the $60 flat rate shipping fee? And he was like, oh, no, I didn't know about that. Okay, boom. That is our first point of friction. Nobody wants to fucking pay $60 for shipping anywhere in the world. All right. So nobody's going to do that. Everybody's going to go to checkout, right? They're going to add it to cart, like 24 people did, and then they're going to go to purchase, and then there's going to be a $60 flat rate shipping fee, and that's going to scare everybody off. So that's the first point of friction. But I'm actually going back to these analytics, and I'm looking at the numbers and saying, okay, what looks low here? Well, for me, the total site visitors looks low. That number should be in the high hundreds, if not low 1000s number for your first or second drop, right? So now we look at the marketing campaign. The marketing campaign is what's going to more than likely determine the number of site visitors on the day of the drop. So we look at the marketing campaign and we've got like 6 posts, and that is point of friction number 2. All right, not enough volume of content. The content was pretty decent, some good product showcase, maybe not as tasteful as I'd like to see it be, as up to date, but some decent product showcase. He had some kind of cinematic videos that kind of had a narrative, but not really, and the narrative wasn't super strong and wasn't super well communicated. So that's another point of friction. We'll call that number 3. We look at the communication. Communication was pretty good. He was clearly communicating in the bio, in the captions of his videos, the communication of like when the drop was going to happen, what day, what website, etc. That wasn't really an issue. So the big thing that I'm looking for here in a campaign for anyone is a spike in traffic. A spike in traffic is pretty much needed on the timeline somewhere from whenever you start the rollout to whenever you do the drop. Typically, you want that spike to be closer to the drop so that you can drop within their attention span window, which is going to be pretty short, right? And I was looking for a spike. I didn't see a spike, not in the Instagram analytics. And that is pretty much a given to me, that not enough effort was put in on the content end of things to cause a spike in traffic, which actually would even spark interest for the campaign. So 160 visitors could have been 1,000 visitors, and 1,000 visitors minus the friction on the checkout with the flat rate shipping fee could have been 100 purchases. It could have been 50 purchases. It could have been 20 purchases. It could have been some purchases, right? And that is what we're looking for. On the first drop, you don't need to make $1 million. You just need to get some shit rolling. He didn't get any products out the door with that drop, and it was because of those 3 things. And if he fixes those 3 things, he makes another good product, or he decides to reframe the product that honestly nobody has seen yet and decides to make more content, fix the issues on his website, he should see better results his second go around. And that is the 3-bucket evaluation in action. So with this framework in mind, I want to ask you 3 different questions. Question number 1, what did these successful brands do that I didn't? And if you want to answer this question, you need to go and you need to look at the competitor brands in your niche, and you need to look at a product rollout that they did, a marketing campaign that they did, or even just content that they did to sell an item, and you need to go through and look at the deliverables. You need to act as the customer. You need to go through their buying process, right? From seeing the content for the first time to joining the SMS list, joining the email list, browsing on their website, checking out. You don't have to buy the item, but just go through the motions, right? See what you like, what you don't like about your customer experience with that brand. From viewing all the content, to getting on the website, to going to checkout, to going and putting your card information in. Is everything seamless, right? What are they doing that you are not? Is it a type of content? Is it a type of website feature? Is it a navigational feature? Is it a form of communication? Is it a frequency or volume difference in terms of volume of content? Is it a length of marketing time difference? Now, Question number 2, what did I do poorly? And with this one, you just gotta be brutally honest with yourself. What did you half-ass? We all half-ass something in marketing campaigns. I have done dozens of marketing campaigns at this point, and I half-ass something every single time because there's only so much time in the day. I'm trying to do a million different things, and some things go less touched than they should be. And there's always something that I kind of half-ass in the drop, and it's not bad, right? You're not a superhuman. You're not gonna know everything about every single part of marketing or selling clothes the first year or 2 or 3 years you do it, all right? You're gonna learn as time goes. But just be honest with yourself. What did you half-ass? Because then you can allot more time in the future whenever you do your next marketing campaign or rollout to make sure that that specific thing that you feel like you half-assed that may have been a make or break detail in your marketing campaign, you can put more time towards that and make sure that that gap gets filled in the next go around. Now, the third question I want to ask you is, what did I not do at all? And this is actually typically the biggest list because most people are just not putting their reps in. Most people are just looking at an Instagram brand, not going through the customer experience, and they're just looking at what they see. They see Instagram posts and they see a website. So that's what they do. But they don't actually get nitty-gritty with the customer experience. They don't actually dive into the email, the SMS list, the touch points that the brand has to offer, whether it's the website or it's a Discord community or it's a broadcast channel or it's a personal brand that backs up the brand and pushes traffic. Right? They're not looking at what these brands are doing. They're not looking at the influencer marketing, right? They're not looking at the UGC. They're not going on Facebook ads library and checking out what ads they're posting, right? What ads they're running on Facebook and Meta and Instagram, right? They're not thinking about all of these things that you actually can do. There's nothing keeping you from doing these things. You just need to learn how to do them and then execute, right? So just make a list of the things that you didn't do. Now, let's talk about the comeback plan. Okay, let's run this shit back and do it right this time. All right, here's how you're gonna do it. So if the product was the issue, I would not recommend completely scrapping your product. What I would do instead is go and do some market research on the products that fit into your niche that other brands that are like yours are selling and figure out the difference. What do those products have that your product does not? And is this something that you can add to your product, even if it's annoying to do so or a hassle to do so, or you have to do it yourself or find a local manufacturer? It is worth it to change poor inventory into pretty decent inventory and run it again rather than just scrap the whole thing and take the L, right? If you can improve it, right, even if you have to send it back to the manufacturer, it's going to be cheaper to make a subpar product good by adding features that it did not have before than it is going to be to buy a completely whole new batch of products. So like I said, go back, do your market research, look at the products in your niche and figure out if you need to adjust your product or if you need to develop something new with market validation. Now, if the product frame was the issue, that is good news because most of this is just like an afternoon of work, all right? Make a size chart, fix the shipping, fix the checkout, test the checkout process, add PayPal, add your credit card gateway, fix the international shipping. It's just sitting down in front of your Shopify and fixing your shit. And it may take a little while to figure out, and you may have to have a few conversations with ChatGPT, but it's relatively easy to fix. Now, if your campaign was the problem, then figure out what the issue in the campaign was. Did you not post enough product showcase? Did you not do enough world building thematic narrative content? Did you not communicate clearly in this content? Did you post the wrong types of content? Or if it's volume, ideate more concepts, do more research, collect more reference points, and then a lot more time to film and post more videos, right? This is mostly common sense. Now, once you have identified and fixed your issues, what is the final step? Well, number one, for your next purchase order or your next bulk order, or if you're going to develop a new item, you need to reconsider your drop quantity. Typically, if people have a bunch of sitting inventory and they feel like they've taken a larger loss financially, they probably bought more inventory and have more of it sitting, right? You're gonna feel less bad about taking an L if the amount of inventory sitting cost you a lot less and is much smaller than if you go with like a super high MOQ of like 100 minimum order quantity or 150. A lot of people go that high with their first drops. They make mistake of not gauging that and kind of going small. I recommend starting between 20 and 50. 20 is really good. Many people don't offer an MOQ that low, but pretty much everybody offers an MOQ of 50. So kind of just re-engineer your thoughts into thinking, okay, I need to buy less products. Let's not go for the home run. Let's go for first and second base. Remember, what you need to prioritize is not revenue in the beginning, it's data. It's data and an understanding of what your audience wants to buy. Now, the second thing you need to do is you need to test your product before you re-drop it. Test your new product or the product that's been adjusted. Ask people, do polls, post it on social media, post it on your personal story, ask friends around you, ask members of that taste community. You can go on Reddit, you can go into Discords of other brands, you can go into all kind of different shit and get feedback, right? Just get some feedback, make sure you're getting positive feedback. People are liking the product before you jump back in and try to sell the product, because maybe the product is cool to other people, but it's not to your community. So make sure the people that you're asking exist in your target audience. And there you have it. That is the 3-bucket evaluation. I've used this a million times over for my own campaigns, and I'll probably use it a million more times. But don't take it from me. I have used this with countless of my students. I've coached over 500 brand owners at this point. A few students that have seen direct results of this that I'd like to highlight are Christian, Tyler, and Kobe. These guys have increased their revenue with every release without fail and have yet to not have a record drop consecutively. So yeah, just a few examples of some people who have used this framework and gotten results from it. So I wanted to share this with you guys. If you guys would like help with the nitty-gritty shit, systems like this for every facet of the brand, whether it's product development or rollout ideation or dealing with Shopify, SMS, email, Klaviyo, PostScript, all the little softwares and the semantics of building a brand in general. I'd love to help you guys. I've built an entire team and written a curriculum over the past 2 years. This is what we use inside of Urban Unity. Urban Unity is my consulting group for exclusively brand owners that are looking to surround themselves with other winning brand owners, share information, attend class 5 times a week, have opportunities every single day to learn more, to ask questions, to get feedback from people who actually know what they're doing, have actually done this shit before. I'm very proud of what I built at Urban Unity. And if you guys would like to be a part of it, the link to apply is in the description. We don't take on a ton of brand owners just because we like to be very intentional with the people that we do take on. So I would encourage you to be very thorough with your application. Most of our applications get denied simply just because I don't see effort. Sometimes I just don't see a passion for it. I really only pick people to work with that I feel are kind of in love with this and are willing to bust their ass to actually make shit happen. So they care about it enough to sacrifice for it, essentially. So if that is you, I'd love to see your application. If we can't work together, if we're not a good fit, I'd love to point you in the right direction. So thank you everybody for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I'm going to be making more videos like this. If you guys have any suggestions for videos you'd like me to make, then drop them in the comments and I'll get cracking. So have a great one, guys. We'll see you next time.